This is part 2 of my talk with the Snarky Gherkin and Dave from the Vaccination Station. If you didn't hear part 1, maybe have a little listen before you tune into this ep. Thanks, bye. You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. If we can just segue into how the anti-vax movement has sort of been co-opted by some dangerous right-wing factions. Can we talk about that, Snarky, and what you've been analysing with that at the moment?
For sure. I'll do a bit of a shout out. Tom Snarky did a fantastic video on this a couple of weeks ago, or actually about a week ago, on an event that occurred a few weeks ago. I'll send you the link to put in the notes. So it sort of all flows into sort of what's occurring now. So a few weeks ago, of an Islamic religious, I think it was a Shia procession, passing St Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne, and it was a real nothing burger. The Archbishop of the Catholic Archbishop issued a statement to say, "Hey, this is a procession that happens every year. This is, please, we don't, just not wanting any drama out of this." So, but Nick Patterson, who I don't know, sees himself as a warrior of Christ sort of type thing, tried to get a bit of a defend Christian values gathering together, and it was a bit of a fizzer. 100 people showed up, but in that group there were neo-Nazis there, and I actually mean neo-Nazis. Like, I sometimes cringe when the word Nazi gets thrown around pretty flippantly, but these people are actually the NSN, the National Socialist group. So wow. They were there, and they, behind the scenes, apparently Nick had given them permission to come, but just don't come in uniform and just keep the Zikal stuff sort of on the down low.
Oh my God.
Avi Yemeni from Rebel News was there, and then suddenly there's a bit of back and forth sort of started to, a bit of shade at one another. So that group, that gathering ended in someone getting punched, and
yep.
Police came, broke it up, and it was just a bit of a shit show. So what's then occurred since then, the head of the NSN, which is the neo-Nazi movement, they've put out a threat to Nick Patterson to say, "Hey, we'll be coming to your next events."
Hang on, sorry. So I'm confused now. So there's Nick Patterson, who's the...
Yep.
Which is he?
So Nick Patterson, he was started a sort of a vigilante group called the Peacemakers. So during
he's the Jesus guy.
Yeah, he's the guy that got dropped like a bag of spuds by Vic Pol when they tried to, they sort of, it kind of morphed. So they during all the anti-lockdown movements, they started a group called the Peacemakers, and they were sort of the muscle behind some of these groups, and then try to keeping the peace, as they say. They were antagonizing the police to sort of to fight and cop bashing type rhetoric. So Nick Patterson, bit of background. So he had a gym during the COVID lockdowns, and he refused to follow the shutdown orders, and so he got some sort of mild fame within the anti-lockdown movement. And so then, so he's got a bit of history. He's been on the down low for a couple of years. He during a pretty famous confrontation with the police, he ran up and just got completely decked, and he's probably spent the following 2 years in sort of litigation. So that's all cleared up, and he's reared his head again as his new identity now is this sort of warrior Christ person thingo, defending Australian Christian values and all that jazz. So he's sort of far right Christian group
Got it.
has had confrontation. So, sure enough, the NSN, which is the Australian neo-Nazi group, they were there as well, and then they've had a confrontation. So there was a bit of Nick Patterson appears to be quite close with Avi Yemeni from Rebel News, and so the allegation from the NSN types is, well, hang on, why are you mingling with this Israeli or Jewish person, yada yada yada. So, and then that's
Oh,
when
okay, right. So you've got this sort
that's
of
how it's
Christian warrior person, and then you've got
yes.
the Nazis.
The Nazis, that's right. I
Yeah.
mean, I just assume. I mean, it seems like they're pretty tolerant, like of one another. So Nick Patterson had said to them that yeah, you can come, but just keep it on the down low sort of thing.
Yeah.
Let
Stop
don't
zig-heiling.
say the
Yep.
yeah,
Mm.
don't say the quiet bits out loud, and
Yeah.
we're sweet to
Yep.
bolster the numbers. So Thomas, I think
Got it.
it's yeah. So then there's been a bit of punch up. So since then, the head of the NSN, I won't say his name, but he's just made it really clear or he released a statement to say that we've made many friendships with so many people in the freedom movement and the Christian groups involved. Probably half of our recruitment in the past 2 years has come from the freedom or anti-vax movements.
Okay, so just to
So
clarify, this is the guy, just for the listeners. So this is the guy that is at the current head of the neo-Nazis,
that's
and
right.
he is making it very clear that they are actually co-opting people and enlisting people from the anti-vax. And just to explain to
Yes,
people, the anti-vaxxers often come on a platform of freedom. What they think is that any sort of government lockdown or any sort of government mandate is actually impacting on their freedom when in fact it's complete rubbish. It actually allows us to be free because we are protected as a society. But anyway, that's their thought. So what's happened is the neo-Nazis are now enlisting the freedom fighting anti-vaxxers, correct?
that's right. Well, and it's an easy funnel because it's the whole anti-vax movement is just stoked on paranoia. It's stoked on misinformation. There's always dog whistles that anybody with a scary sounding name with an animal in it, whether it be wolf or something thereabouts, they're always the bad guys, and there's always Jewish connotations with that. So
Ugh.
it's always been the same sort of dog whistle. So it's a really easy funnel for like as the NSN has said, over the last 2 years, 50% of their current members were recruited through the quote unquote freedom movement
Oh my
because it's an
God.
easy pivot. It's an easy pivot. So this is it's the old, that is not to say that every anti-vaxxer is a neo-Nazi, but it does appear that most neo-Nazis are anti-vaxxers, and and so the last week or so since this has been made really clear, I've there's been a lot of infighting within the various sort of
I've
clicker
seen,
anti-vax freedom
I've
groups.
seen. Yep.
For those listening sort of abroad, there's now a group, a grassroots group to take back Australia, and it's March for Australia due it's the end of August. But it's the
And what
same
do they
old.
want, Snarky? What are this Take Back Australia
Oh, it's
madness? What do they want?
end mass immigration and
Oh my
stand up
God.
for our country, and it's only Australian flags that are going to be there,
Only white
and so
people?
I think so. I mean, from what I've seen in some of the comments around, so there's some sort of free journalists, as they call themselves, independent journalists who are of non-Anglo European backgrounds. I've seen threats to them, like if you show up, you're gonna cop it and things like that. So it's really nasty, some of the rhetoric around this. I think it's probably going to be a bit of a fizzer. Sure thing, Monica's.
When is it happening this March?
It is supposed to be I think it's the 28th of, no, let me double check here. Yeah, it's the 31st of August,
Right, in Melbourne.
Sunday. Well, it's saying across all cities and the exact location, but from what I've gathered, I've looked at the domain, the name behind the IP address of the March for Australia.org, and he seems to be a Melbourne chap. So I think that's probably going to be the epicenter of all this. So it's all, I probably haven't explained it
No,
very
no,
well,
you have.
but
I
it's
just think the
um
fact that you can live in Australia and have so little comprehension of what it's like to live in in a non-democratic country, and that you could seriously consider that we don't have freedom here is breathtaking, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So it's been interesting for a lot of observers. So seeing a lot of these groups just tearing themselves apart. A
Mm.
famous one being Monica Smith
Monica
from
Smith, yeah,
Reignite Democracy. She jumped in headfirst as she does on all these things.
yeah.
Um, I sort of take the joke that she's discovered that she can't drift out of it, so she's now sort of decided that it's not for her. She has
Mhm.
publicly said, actually, even for her, this stinks. And again, I've got mountains of things that she's said over the last 5 years, which are complete, just dog whistles and
Yeah.
all sorts to those groups. So even she's saying, actually, this probably stinks. I've put it to her that she just doesn't get to sort of pull the brakes on these things. This is
She doesn't
something
like
that
it.
she's fueled this for the last 5 years. She's
Oh,
fueled the
100%.
the innuendo, the uncertainty, the paranoia, the sharing of Jewish names behind sponsors behind
Awful.
certain vaccines and all this. So you just don't get to sort of just stop the train and get off. This is something that
No.
they should
This,
be held
yeah.
accountable for, and
I was
that's my take on it.
interesting when I was talking to Michael Marshall, who's a very, very prominent British skeptic. He's the president of the Merseyside Skeptics. He's been in for 20 years. He's done enormous work on it, and he was saying that this collision between anti-vaxxers and these extreme right-wing movements like the neo-Nazis, and he was saying the problem is that once you move into an anti-vax community, then you find, but you've been alienated from your family, right? You're the strange uncle that's not allowed to come to the christening because you won't get vaccinated, right? So you're already alienated. So then you've found a new tribe because we're tribally brained, you want to belong somewhere. And then there's this new tribe that starts talking, sort of spewing racist garbage. But at that point, you're already alienated. You've already found a new community. So if you then go, well, actually, I don't agree with this, where do you go? Like then you're nowhere.
Oh,
Then you
exactly.
exactly
Yeah,
where are you going to go to find a new community? You're already marginalized, you're already ostracized. And it's a
I
very
remember
interesting point, right?
it is. I remember early days in the pandemic, there was a lot of the anti-vaxxers, especially in Australia, because we had the luxury of keeping the virus, you know, like it was by most part kept out of the country. So there are a lot of anti-vaxxers here that would insist that the virus didn't exist.
Yeah, no.
And that I remember one prominent anti-vaxxer saying, "I'm going to knock out the first person that tells me that they've ever had COVID," and yada yada yada. So
Mm.
it was like a fish tank full of piranhas when some of these anti-vaxxers started getting COVID.
Yeah.
That community just absolutely swarmed on them like a tank of piranhas. It was insane. I think they
So
all
bad.
agree now that it's a combination of, yeah, it does exist, but it's not as bad, or it exists because
It's
it's a
just a cold.
bioweapon and
It's just a
it's just a
cold.
cold and it's just the
Yeah.
flu, which actually the flu is quite devastating in itself. But
Dangerous.
yeah, yeah. So it's there's a lot going on at the moment. We're calling it the Cooker Civil War. New
Cooker
lines are
Civil
being
War is
drawn.
awesome.
It's one of these things that there's a couple of prominent anti-vaxxers that are on the page that we run, and just ask them point blank, do you disavow these people? And they won't say it. They
No, they
will not
won't.
say, no, you know what, screw. There comes a point, at least maybe we can have a little bit of common ground in that, yeah, Nazis are bad. Let's start there. We can
Yeah.
disagree on other things, but it's like, and they just won't. They will
They
not
just
say it
won't do
because
it.
it's, yeah.
Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, 2 points. Firstly, you will never get the right wing fully united. They have too many points of difference among them. They have always tried to spread a broad net, or at least the most ambitious ones have always tried to spread a broad net and say, look, we all have these general principles we agree on. But there are too many factions which are laser focused on their own little issues, whether it's the Jews, whether it's, um, non-whites, whether it's something else, whether it's morality in secular culture or whatever. There's too much fragmentation, and that has always been the case wherever you go, anywhere in the Western world. The hard right has always fragmented hopelessly to its own detriment. So you'll get a few nutters going out there saying some stuff, and the others will go, this is too much for us, or this is the wrong focus, or whatever. I agree with Snarky. I think this is largely going to fizzle out. The fact that they have to recruit from the so-called freedom movement shows just how little support they really have for their avowed core values. They cannot recruit naturally. They've got to poach from other groups who have some similar interests on a handful of points.
Can I ask you why you think
paranoid
the
group,
right wing? Oh, sorry, Snarky.
Oh, just brilliantly said, David. Yeah, that's nothing else to add.
Dave, why do you think the right wing does fracture so avidly?
Firstly, there is a whole string of different hard right ideologies, from the guys who want to do it purely for the sake of nationalism, the guys who want to do it for the sake of racism, the guys who want to do it for the sake of racism and nationalism, the guys who are Christian and want to do it for the sake of Christianity and some Christian white nationalism. Then there's the people who are the guys who are the pagans and think it's better to go back to pre-pagan nationalism. There are simply too many competing ideologies and there's not enough in common. When in America they had the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, what happened? It all fell apart. It was a spectacular failure. And the very fact that they had to hold a Unite the Right rally shows that they know this is a problem.
And there's the anti-woke now, right? Anti-woke is another big sort of tendril, isn't it?
There's too much fragmentation and there's too many people who want to be the boss and simply grift off the whole thing. There's too many grifters as well. Nobody can trust anybody. Everyone's always stabbing each other in the back. Everyone wants their ideology to be the main one. The second point I want to make is my anti-vax work is primarily focused on the American anti-vax movement. Why? Because the American anti-vax movement is the biggest in the world, the most influential. It has it has the most tendrils and it puts out most of the anti-vax material in the Western world. In Australia, the anti-vax movement is toothless. They are largely irrelevant. I pay virtually no attention to the domestic anti-vax movement because it has absolutely no power whatsoever. They don't have a Kennedy figure. They don't have people in office who are changing government policy to match anti-vax preferences. Nothing like that. There's a tiny handful of irrelevant nobodies piggybacking on the work of American anti-vaxxers. So my job is to focus primarily on the biggest voices and the worst sources of anti-vax propaganda. The other thing is, it is important to show anti-vaxxers that many of their arguments that they use are American-centric. Oh, doctors are paid so much and they get these huge incentives from insurance companies. These kinds of arguments do not work the moment you step outside America. Oh, but the healthcare system is driven by insurance companies, totally controlled by insurance companies and big pharma. That argument completely falls apart when you move to the rest of the Western world, where we have universal healthcare. There is a major issue for anti-vaxxers. Their arguments fall apart the moment you step outside America. And that is something that needs to be driven home time and time again.
And how do you do that? How do you count? Oh, sorry, you go, Snarky.
I was just going to touch on is an interesting point and something I've touched on before, especially around like the insurance industry and the health in the American sense. To some extent, they're at odds because it's the insurance companies that are having to pay these exorbitant costs for these treatments and these medications, etc. So it's not actually economical for them. Let's say if you buy into the anti-vax argument that it's all just a big fraud, it's like most insurance companies, like the profit margins are very, very minimal. Maybe
I didn't understand that. Do you mind re-saying that? I lost you.
Yeah. So the profit ratio for a lot of insurance companies, they're probably making 5 cents out of every dollar worth of premium because
For
of
what?
they're having for paying out for the treatments of a lot of private healthcare in the US. So the argument that this is all just a big rort and they're just trying to generate money for themselves in the US.
I see. Sorry, right.
My thought would be, well, wouldn't the insurance industry then push back on the pharmaceutical industry? Because they're assessing the treatments and the medications and the costs that the hospitals are essentially putting to the insurance companies to pay. They have their own assessors. I don't know if I'm making sense. Maybe just cut it out. But it's like they're not in cahoots. The insurance industry and the pharmaceutical or medical industries, they're actually at odds because it's the insurance companies that are having to pay the costs of these treatments. And so
Right.
I don't know. I'm probably just thinking out loud. It doesn't make sense, but
No,
maybe just cut
it's
it.
okay.
But
But
yeah,
there's just the overarching notion that there is sort of the organizations are all in cahoots and are trying to
yeah.
get to the little man, right?
Well, that's right. And the health insurers in Australia are almost on the brink of collapse. Like it's not profitable.
Yeah,
They
at all.
need government subsidy. So it's not a super profitable. When people say, oh, it's the big pharma and the insurers and they're all in cahoots, and it's like, well, actually they're actually at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And
So
it's yeah.
I think that's right. So, Dave, how do you counter it, this American argument? Because RFK terrifies me because of the funding that's now being ripped out of all the research, right? It's terrible. It's going to affect us, right?
Well, one point I want to bring up is that Snarky has really nailed it here. The insurance argument is a classic self-own by anti-vaxxers. It's an amazing footshot. If they want to argue that vaccines are bad and they can prove this by the fact that insurance companies incentivize vaccination by paying clinics to make sure that they maintain a certain quota, then they need to explain how that benefits the insurance
Insurance
company.
companies.
Insurance companies make money when people are well, and they lose money when people are sick because they have to pay out. Why would an insurance company
Yes.
incentivize vaccination if vaccination makes you sick? It makes no sense. They
Perfect.
incentivize vaccination because it keeps people healthy so they don't lose money. And the amount they pay to these practices, these medical practices, not directly to doctors, as is commonly assumed, is negligible in the grand scheme of things. Utterly
Are
negligible.
you
But
talking America or here?
I'm talking America, but also here in Australia, it's less of an issue here
It's
because
even more so. Yeah.
it's more relevant in Australia here because we have universal healthcare, whereas in America it's all largely run by the private sector and by the health insurance industry. The one argument that does work in America is that prices are massively inflated in America because the insurance companies are involved and because they can work with healthcare providers to game the system to their advantage. But and that's a completely different matter, and it's an issue for America to solve, and has no relevance to anyone else outside America.
Right, got it. So how
So
go
how
you
do I
yeah, how do you
push
do it?
back against this? Okay,
Yeah.
well, firstly, I go looking for standard arguments. I go looking for standard arguments, for new arguments, for latest claims. I go looking on social media. Twitter is obviously one of the best places still to find anti-vax propaganda. What's the latest claim they're making? There's a study that's come out. Anti-vaxxers are saying it proves this. I go
Yeah.
looking for the study. I go looking for the standard professionals that I follow who are very good at debunking this sort of stuff. I scoop together the information. I compress it into a manageable format, into a few hundred words in the form of an infographic with some sources, and then I put it out on the vaccination station
And do
and
you
on my
disseminate
website.
that in America?
I put it out on Facebook, so it goes out everywhere. Yeah, most of my followers on Facebook, the majority are American, so I know it goes straight out to a predominantly American audience, which is very convenient for me.
Right. Okay.
And with other stuff, I will sit down and directly write a detailed rebuttal. When Kennedy came out with his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, which is just one big long libel from start to finish, I sat down, I got hold of a copy of the book, and I sat down and I wrote a book that refutes it point by point. And I can send you a link to that book if you're interested. But the book is called In Defense of Fauci. It took me about 3 months to hammer out. I
Amazing.
got the advice and support and of some medical professionals, and the introduction is written by Dr. Jonathan Howard, who's written his own books against Kennedy stuff and other anti-vax stuff. And he was generous enough to write the introduction for me. He's a really great guy. I've interviewed him on my podcast. He's definitely worth following on social media.
So
So this is
you like
how I do it.
Snarky, both of you do what you do. You have children, you have a family, you have a job. I'll get to you in a minute, Snarky. what keeps you going, and like, how do you fit it in?
Well, I'm a private tutor, so I work from home, so I have time to do a lot of this stuff anyway, which is fine. But sometimes it just takes a lot of late nights. Like when I was writing my book, I literally pulled a lot of late night all-nighters. I stayed up till 5 in the morning finishing a chapter to make sure I could get this book out in time, and sometimes that's what it takes. But I'm just driven by a burning desire to support public health and to push back against the grifters who make obscene amounts of money by exploiting people's gullibility and causing damage to the wider community through the things that they do and say.
And what about you, Snarky? What? Because I know you also are managing. I think you've got a family. You're managing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is by no means as comprehensive as what Dave does or what a lot of other people do. But it is really just trying to balance, like the commute sort of to and from the CBD can, be an hour sometimes each way. So that affords me some time. But yeah, it's once the kids are down and the household's quiet, it's we jump on and try to do what we can. But
And do you
it's
have the
yeah.
support of your families to do this?
Broadly, yeah, my wife's pretty cool. She's pretty awesome. So it's yeah, they know that what we do, and just it's just a bit of a at the moment. It's just trying to debunk some nonsense, debunk some dangerous messaging, and yeah. But that's it. I mean, it as sort of this page that I've got is growing far
I
faster than I thought
know,
it
it's
would. So
amazing.
it's definitely worth putting some more time and resources in, and seeing if there's a technological kind of way to assist as well, because it's all just done from my phone. So perhaps investing in a laptop or something might help with some of the content. But yeah, for now, I mean, it's essentially just posting sort of memes and doing some deep dives here and there. It's by no means
Well,
as
yeah.
detailed as what the likes of David's doing. But
Well, no,
yeah,
you
I
know
hope to
that.
get there at
Don't
some point.
diminish
So
it. Don't
yeah,
diminish it, Snarky. Your profile is fantastic, and the use of humor, as we know, is super effective. It's why I wrote my two comedic books on critical thinking, just because I was reading all the books, written by men, and they were boring and they were dry, and no one was reading them. So I thought, well, I'm going to do something that's sort of funny,
mm,
and that's been really good. I don't have much of a presence on Facebook. I've got TikTok and I've got my podcast, but you've both inspired me to keep at it, because honestly, sometimes I turn on the news and I see the latest thing that RFK does, and I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it just the frustration that I experience in that moment. I feel like almost lost in this swamp of
yeah.
madness at the moment. So I don't know. We have to keep going, right?
It's almost like that old Churchill quote comes to mind about the Americans during the Second World War, where he says the US will eventually do the right thing once they've tried everything else. And I feel like this at the moment, this is America's okay. Let's just try everything else first. But and I'm sure by in 2027, 2028, the pendulum should have swung and
Do
we'll
you
be back to some
think?
normalcy. But
Do you think
I,
that?
I think so. It's what I tell myself, just looking at it from a historical perspective. I think there's probably I'm by no means up to speed with American politics as in depth as other people, but I think that the midterms are next year. I think they'll get absolutely trashed, and
Do
then
you
that's when
reckon?
the
Oh,
sort of
good.
well, if you think it only 60% of the voting population turned up on election
I
day,
know.
slightly more than 30% voted for Trump and slightly less for the other side. So I think a lot of people, well, we'll see. I mean, I'm happy to eat my words, get the remind me bot
Hope
to
you're
to
right.
come back to us. But I think a lot of people that were reluctant to even show up last year will show up in numbers. I think that he's burnt a lot of political capital, even with conservatives. I follow a number of sort of moderate, more sort of fiscal conservatives in the US, and they're just completely
Oh, they
bewildered with
must be.
what's happened. Like it's really just going to be the sort of the fringe hangers on. I think that'll stay. So that's what I tell myself. But who knows? They
What do you
could
think, Dave?
Well, firstly, I want to mention that I discuss my vaccination station work quite often with my wife and kids, and they are all very supportive, which is great. And secondly, one thing which is something I think is worth remembering for those of us who do push back against this and stuff, and it's something I've mentioned to my kids on a number of occasions. Social media is not reality. Social media is a curated environment. Some of them are less curated than others, but by and large, they are curated environments with their own echo chambers and subsets
Sure.
of echo chambers. As a result, the torrent of anti-science stuff that you often see on social media, which can be very exhausting, can be overwhelming, can leave you with the feeling that, wow, is there any point? Most of that is happening only on social media and not very not very much elsewhere in real life. Like, for example, in Australia, as I mentioned before, the anti-vax community here is on life support. No jab, no pay, and no jab, no play, overwhelmingly supported. These policies overwhelmingly supported by Australians across the nation. There's strong support for vaccination on both sides of the political aisle. That has never been an issue. So, in when you step back from social media and look at real life, at least here in Australia, which is obviously one of the saner Western countries, um, you can see for yourself. Anti-vaxxers are definitely not winning here, and that is worth reminding yourself of every now and then, whenever you see just how bad things are.
That's
Yeah,
good advice. That's really good advice. It can be quite dispiriting otherwise, can't
mm,
it?
sure, things are bad in the US, and they are getting worse in the US now that Kennedy's brought his little wrecking ball, etc. That is a problem for the US to solve. We can do all our best to support our own allies in the US, but by and large, that is an issue we need to remember is not our problem, and it is not something that actually directly affects Australia, at least in terms of policy and stuff like that, that would have a major difference. So it's important to keep this in perspective. Remember, social media is not reality. A lot of people agreeing on social media is not the same as a lot of people agreeing in reality.
Life. Okay.
And that is worth keeping in mind because it helps to keep things in perspective and reassure you that you know what, ultimately a lot of these people are clinging to a very small minority position that just happens to be extremely loud. And that is worth keeping in mind.
And can I ask you one more question? You talked before, I know we're going to have to wrap it up soon. You talked before about how fractured the extreme right is. Why isn't the left as fractured?
Ironically, the left, I think the left is less fractured because it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of factionalism that the right does. Uh, Obviously there are factions on the left, and I'm speaking mainly in the context of American politics here
Sure.
because this is where it all mainly starts. But the left seems to be better at a broader approach, and there's actually less diversity in views among the left on big issues. In fact, I was looking at a graph. Can't remember where I found it. I have to go looking for it. A graph and an infographic showing the diversity of views on left and right sides of the American political spectrum, and it's actually much broader on the right. Now, I don't know precisely why that is. That's something for sociologists and political analysts to explain, and maybe at some point I'll get around to doing an infographic on that because I did find
Please
it
do.
interesting. But what that means is, and the right was celebrating it. The right was sharing this graphic on social media, saying, "See, look, we are so much broad-minded. We have so much more diversity of views within on our side." However, it's a double-edged sword because that does mean that when it comes to some specific issues like racism and nationalism and white supremacy and that kind of thing, there is actually less scope for creating a large united bloc.
Got
It
it.
means that there's a great deal of factionalism, there's a great deal of infighting, there is very little agreement, and it is very difficult for, say, the hardest factions to cooperate with the more centrist factions. And that is one of the reasons, I think, why the right wing is so fractured in America.
Awesome. That's a great explanation. So, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap it up, Dave?
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who supports the vaccination station. Just a follow is great. Just a share is fantastic. It helps keep my organic reach higher and makes sure that the information gets to the people who need to see it.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Snarky,
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to add to the discussion?
Not particularly. It's been great to meet you virtually, Dave, and glad that we've made a new friend. And we'll eagerly await the angry Substacks that will be no
Yeah.
doubt critiquing our tone of voices and every little. Well, they won't look to debunk anything we've actually said. They'll just look to criticise us personally. But hope to do this again another time. And it's just I could just sit and listen to you both all day. But yeah, it's been
Me
great.
too.
So
I'd just like to congratulate myself on my amazing ventriloquist skills and the fact that I have single-handedly produced 3 voices today. Yep. Because
it's been great.
I know. I am the creator of Snarky and Dave. It's all me. And
That's it.
I think I just can't tell you how thrilled I am that you both came on and how inspiring I find it to talk to people with a similar outlook to me and who are fighting the good fight in a good-natured and humorous way. And you guys are just awesome. And I would really love it if you would both come back on again, because I think between the 3 of us, we've got some interesting perspectives. Do you agree?
I
I
think so.
agree. I think we've got some great perspectives, we've got good chemistry, and we have shared goals, and that's really what you need for this kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I will bid you both a fond farewell. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Snarky.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. I'm going to go and take care of my non-COVID with some horse paste. So talk soon. See you
I'm
later.
gonna look up an enema place now, so I'll be
Yeah, can you stop
I'll be offline.
saying, oh my God, you've made me
No,
think
cut that
about a
out.
turmeric
Cut that
enema.
out. Sorry.
No, I like it.
Yeah,
Turmeric.
yeah.
I don't know. Coffee enema isn't doing it for me anymore. I like the progression to the turmeric enema. Also, the fact that it's yellow and snarky sort of green. I don't know, something about it. Sort of the color
That's it.
palette's working, right?
Jokes aside, on
Or do
a jab vaccination, no, a non-jab dating page, they're pushing the turmeric pretty heavy there to stop the mRNAs or whatever. Even though we've all got billions of them in our bodies, but that's where that comes from. But
what does what does it do? It stops the mRNA.
it stops the mRNAs, which doesn't make sense because we need mRNA messenger RNAs to live. But it's the turmeric is supposed to counter the mRNAs apparently. So it's like, okay, like, yeah.
I had one of the fellows that used to work for us was an Indian national. I think he was from Kerala. And he said turmeric is the most disgusting thing. He said it's like his mother was putting mud in his food. He said it's just, he could not understand how it had taken such a sort of prime position in the
It's lovely in a curry.
zeitgeist.
But yeah, that's it.
Turmeric, it's so awful. It's also once a long,
is.
long time ago. I'll just quickly finish with this story. When I was in my 20s and I was on a search for something for my asthma, and somebody put me onto a traditional Chinese doctor, and he made me boil up herbs, which I then had to imbibe. I think it was twice a day. It was the most disgusting process. It stank the house out. It was revolting, and I had to drink it. It made me want to throw up, and yet apparently this was going to fix my asthma. And I'm here to report it did not.
Mm,
Did not fix my asthma. I was as bad as when I started. I just felt more nauseous and it stunk the flat up. So just be
yeah.
careful what you take into your bodies, people.
Yeah. No, that's it.
On that lovely note of Chinese herbs and turmeric enemas, I'm going to bid you both a fond farewell. See you later.
Thank you. Thanks,
See
both.
ya. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in the car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.